Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to be talking about a new YouTube experiment, we're going to be talking about Twitch educating their streamers, and a whole lot more, so go ahead and stick around. All right. Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome back to episode 129 of the BSP. You are getting very sleepy. You are succumbing to my suggestion. And guess what you want to do? You want to hit that subscribe button, that like button. You want to leave a comment and subscribe to the audio-only version of the podcast, which can be found at bandrewsays.com. Also, you definitely don't feel a strong urge to skip to whatever topics I'm talking about that you're interested in. You feel the strong urge to listen to the entire podcast all the way through. But if you don't succumb to mind control, I'll go ahead and leave timestamps in the description down below. Let's get right into it. First thing, I want to point out an issue with last week's podcast. So I noticed that the AC was on in the background and the expander on my preamp was doing its job really well. It was cutting out a lot of the background noise, but whenever I started talking, that expander or gate would open up and then you would just hear this white noise in the background and this low-level hum. Now, it's not the most noticeable thing, but when I was editing it, it was driving me absolutely mad. So this week, I went ahead and switched the Unison preamp I'm using on my Aero, and I'm now using the Neve preamp, which doesn't have any expander or gate. So I will have to be more careful with the background noise this go-round, but I think ultimately it will lead to a better recording and a better listening experience because I will be more careful and not rely on all these plugins and tools to fix bad audio that I had in my studio. So now I'm practicing what I preach. Secondly, I just want to go ahead and point out that I do enjoy doing what I'm doing on YouTube and with the podcast. So over this weekend, I had a conversation with a friend and they pointed out that, yeah, over the last year or two, my personality has changed. And also, I received quite a few comments saying, Bandrew, you seem sad. Are you okay? You don't need to make YouTube videos. You seem sad. Stop. But I want to point out that I do really enjoy making these videos. I've just become much more tame and much more authentic with my personality. Now, that's not to say that what I used to do or how I used to behave was inauthentic. It was nothing more than an exaggerated version of my personality. So I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into when they start a new podcast or a YouTube channel. They feel like I gotta be over the top and super exciting all the time and scream everything that I say, like Alex Jones. But over time, you become more and more comfortable in your skin in front of a camera, and you feel okay exposing who you really are and being more authentic and less exaggerated. And that's all that's really been happening. I haven't started to hate what I'm doing. I really enjoy it, and I'm just being more real with you guys, not being so, hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Podcastage. We're reviewing a microphone today. Yeah! I'm not doing that anymore because it's just not as fun for me to be that over the top. And additionally, it did start to hurt my voice screaming everything. So it's to maintain my ability to make videos and yell at you guys for years to come and not completely destroy my vocal cords. So that's all I wanted to say up top. Now let's get into the news. And the first thing is clarification on Patreon acquiring kit.com. So a few months ago on BSP-129, I discussed the acquisition of Kit by Patreon, which made zero sense to me because when this acquisition was made, Patreon said, okay, the Kit team is going to help us with merch fulfillment. And that made zero sense because kit.com is nothing more than a website that lets you put all the gear that you use and input your affiliate marketing accounts and link people to that gear. So by that description, kit.com should not be able to assist in any form of merch fulfillment. But Jack Conte was on the latest version of the Internet Creators Guild podcast, and he explained why they acquired Kit. It was not because of Kit's platform that they had generated. It was nothing more than a talent acquisition because Jack Conte and his team think that Kit.com's team is going to be the best fit and the best team to create a new merch fulfillment platform that could be implemented into Patreon's website. So I think that is really cool to hear. I'm really happy to hear the explanation because I was so dang confused by it. And hopefully that will give you a nice conclusion and a bookend to that story. I was just really excited to hear that. Secondly, Anchor is launching a podcasting studio. So if you don't know what Anchor is, it's a podcast host that offers free hostings for podcasts, but it does have some downsides. I won't say too much about it. It's not my position to do it. I'm not a podcasting expert or anything, but I did recently read through their terms of service, and there was some stuff that I wasn't too fond of, like they have the right to use your content for anything that they want. That seemed a little bit concerning to me, but that's not what this is about. This is about them doing something that I think is pretty cool. So in Manhattan, which I believe is where their headquarters are, they launched a free podcasting space. So if you have your podcast hosted on Anchor, you're going to be able to book time at this studio, which has 3 microphones and an iPad. So you're recording your podcast to an iPad. When you're done recording, they'll upload your files to your Anchor account. You can download them on your computer, do whatever you want with them, and there you go. You can get much better audio quality without a huge investment. So if you are in New York City, go ahead and check out Anchor's site and their booking if you need a high quality microphone and hopefully a good sounding podcast. But they didn't list the podcast gear that they have, which would have been cool to see. I think when they set up Casey Neistat's studio, they just used Shure Beta 87As or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if anybody does go to the Anchor podcasting studio, go ahead and let me know. What kind of gear are they letting you use? Now let's jump to the YouTube news, the stuff that I really like talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and link a video in the show notes and description down below, and it was from the Creator Insider YouTube channel. It was the news flash this last week, and there was a lot of news updates in there, but I'm only going to be talking about a couple of them. The first one is that if you are an iOS YouTube viewer, 1 to 2% of you will get a new experiment that they are running. And this is going to be replacing the Trending tab with the Explore tab. Now, in the Explore tab, it's still going to have the trending videos, but it's going to analyze the videos that you watch and provide you with more parallel content. For lack of a better word, it's going to show you channels and videos that parallel the content that you're watching. So if you watch a lot of videos about podcasting and how to podcast, they may start recommending my channel because they realize that my type of content would complement the how to podcast type videos. Or if you do a how to YouTube video, they may start recommending on the Explore tab a bunch of camera reviews and channels about marketing and branding, all sorts of stuff along that lines. And I think this is a really cool feature, and I hope that they continue to develop it so it ends up getting flushed out and rolled out to everybody, and that could help creators find a new audience and get to people who would find value in their content but just don't know that they need to find that content. So I think that's a really cool thing that YouTube is doing, and I just wanted to share that with you. The second thing I want to talk about is despamming the dislikes. I was not aware that this was happening, but YouTube determined that there was an automated system, or there were some automated systems that would auto-dislike videos. Now, YouTube was able to find a way to detect those auto-dislikes, block them, and remove them. And that is pretty much it there. I just think that's really cool that they are continuing to improve and avoid any kind of spam or block spammers and abusers of the platform. Then we got YouTube web player adapting to vertical video. No! Stop it! Come on! What are you doing? Do not encourage them. Do not encourage them to use vertical video. It's not okay. That is not okay. Don't encourage them. So simply put, I'm sorry. I don't really care that much. I'm getting over exaggerated, and I'm giving you guys my old personality. Simply put, the web player is going to dynamically adjust its size to fit vertical videos or to fit a video's native aspect ratio. So I was recently watching a video that had an ultra wide aspect ratio, and the player was super wide. Then I went back to a 16:9. The player dynamically adjusted to 16:9. If you went ahead and watched a vertical video, which I don't recommend, it'll go ahead and adjust the player dynamically to fit the vertical video. That is really it. And I just hope it doesn't encourage people to shoot in vertical formats, because I don't like that. And I don't think a lot of people like that, even though it is more optimized for viewing on your phone. I get it. Cool. Whatever. Next, we got YouTube striking Alex Jones's channel. And this is going to be an interesting conversation, so I hope you guys will share your thoughts in the comments down below here. So the strike from YouTube was for violating their policy about hate speech and child endangerment. And this also came along with the removal of 4 of Alex Jones's videos. And side note, if I'm not mistaken, Facebook also suspended his personal account for 1 month. Apparently, this was only his personal page and not the Alex Jones show or the InfoWars channel or anything like that on their platform, but for a similar reason. I think it was hate speech and harassment, something like that. Now, I don't care at all about Alex Jones or his content, but I'm bringing this story up because I think there's a very interesting thing to discuss here. And that would be that Alex Jones, over the past couple years, has constantly been positioning himself in a way that I find very clever. Now, the way that he's been positioning himself is always pointing out that he's being censored by these left-leaning social media companies, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the YouTubes, when maybe he really hasn't been. But when he actually does get suspended or blocked or get strikes from these companies because he's violating the terms of service, what that does is to Alex Jones's audience, who really does believe him, he now becomes a martyr, which I think is just mind-blowing by constantly suggesting that he is being censored and blocked when he continuously violates these terms of service and he does get blocked. Now he's a martyr. I think that is so fascinating. So now he's going to be able to, in the future, reference these instances as proof that he is being censored. That's really it. So you can like him, you can hate him, or like me, you can just not even care about him. But you have to admit, this is a very, very clever strategy on how to market yourself and position yourself if you have extreme positions. By saying, oh, they're censoring me. If they ever do actually strike you or take down a video, now you can say, oh, see, I told you they were censoring me, and now you're a martyr. I find that just fascinating. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you agree it was clever, or do you think this is just nonsense? Let me know. Now let's jump to Twitch news. So Twitch launches something called Creator Camp. This is a resource that is going to teach you a whole bunch of stuff like how to set up your Twitch channel, best practices, Twitch etiquette, community guidelines, to growing your channel through branding and social media, to analyzing your analytics in the dashboard, to making connections, and lastly, to monetizing your channel. Now, honestly, I looked at this webpage and it seems insanely thorough. Now, there aren't an unlimited number of training courses. It seems about 4 or 5 per topic area, but I think they are pretty good jumping off points. I think I may actually be taking these myself to see if I can learn anything new. So if you are a Twitch streamer, or even if you do live streaming on YouTube, I would highly recommend checking this out. Maybe take a couple of the trainings and see if there's anything that you can gain from that. And if I take them and find anything useful, I'll go ahead and maybe share that on Twitter. So if you want to find out, go ahead and follow me on twitter.com/podcastage. I guess I'll post it there, and I'll throw a link to the Creator Camp in the description down below. Now let's go ahead and jump to some Apple news, and the only story we got here is that Apple fixes the Core i9 thermal throttling, sort of. So I actually found this pretty dang cool because it's a complete departure from how Apple used to function. So I'm sure by now everybody has seen Dave Lee's video. He released it and he was talking about the thermal throttling on the Core i9 version of the new MacBook Pro 15-inch. And what's cool is that when this came out, within a couple of days, both Apple and Adobe contacted Dave Lee to work with him and try to find the cause of this thermal throttling. Now, if I'm not mistaken, what Dave Lee did was go ahead and let them know what codecs he was using, what LUTs he was using, all sorts of information about how he was processing the video. And Apple was able to find where the issue lied within the computing process. So Apple gave TechCrunch a statement here. And they said that following extensive performance testing under numerous workloads, we've identified that there is a missing digital key in the firmware that impacts the thermal management system and could drive clock speeds down under heavy thermal loads on the new MacBook Pro. A bug fix is included in today's macOS High Sierra 10.13.6 supplemental update, and it is recommended. We apologize to any customer who has experienced less than optimal performance on their new systems. Customers can expect the new 15-inch MacBook Pro to be up to 70% faster and the 13-inch MacBook Pro with Touch Bar to be up to 2 times faster as shown in the performance results on our website. And there it is. So Apple heard the complaints and Apple found a solution and released a solution very quickly. And that is pretty much the end of it. So I'll end this by clarifying something. So will the Core i9 in a very thin laptop give you the same performance as a full desktop tower with a bunch of cooling running the Core i9? Probably not. That's probably not something that you should expect. A laptop should not be able to provide the same performance as a desktop with optimal cooling solutions. That's not what you should expect. So I personally have always viewed laptops not as a desktop replacement, but as something to use when you're not able to access your desktop. So when you're traveling or when you're sitting on your couch and you want to accomplish some work, you can use a laptop. But if you need that full desktop power to process a video, especially in 8K or a 5K Red RAW, do it on your desktop. These laptops aren't meant to be desktop replacements. They're meant to be pro-level travel solutions in my mind. Now, I'm sure people will disagree with me, but that's my take on it. And I'll go ahead and link an article in the description down below from macrumors.com talking about this. Now, next we got one security story, and this one was fascinating to me. So, Verizon launches an ad-blocking VPN for $3.99 a month. So apparently, in order to access this new VPN, all you got to do is log into your My Verizon app on your phone, and then there's an option to subscribe to the Safe Wi-Fi, which is what they're calling this VPN. So I'm going to go ahead and admit, I have not looked at the terms of service of this VPN, but I will point out that Verizon has had a history of installing super cookies which track everything that you're doing on their network. So if I had to speculate about the motivation behind them launching this new VPN, I would say they've probably noticed an increasing number of people using third-party VPN services. And what that means is that Verizon has no idea what you're looking at or what information or data you're sending over their network. So they're going to go ahead and think, okay, let's go ahead and undercut the price of all these third-party VPNs so people have a financial motivation to sign up for ours and cancel their service with this other VPN. Then, once they've done that, we will once again have all this user's traffic running through our own servers, and we know exactly what they're doing. So technically, yes, you will have protection from people sniffing or intercepting your traffic over open Wi-Fi. But you no longer would have any protection from your ISP or your cell provider because you're sending their traffic through their servers again. So I would never trust any kind of VPN from one of these ISPs or cell providers. That seems like such a bad idea when you definitely know that they love tracking you and love collecting all your information. It seems so dumb. So I'm just going to simply suggest to not use this. And on that note, you probably shouldn't have the My Verizon app on your phone either. Just don't give these companies access to such personal information. You're paying them an arm and a leg for service. They shouldn't think, okay, well, they're paying me $100 a month. Let's go ahead and collect their data, aggregate it, and sell it off to some marketing company or serve targeted ads to them to earn a couple extra bucks a month. We're giving them enough money. They don't need more money to be earned off of us or get more money from us. So that is it there. We got a couple new products that I want to talk about, and the first one is a new Stream Deck Mini. So if you wanted a Stream Deck, which is Elgato's, let me see if I can pull this out. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see it right here. This is a Stream Deck. It is a little multi-button dashboard that allows you to conduct different activities or processes when you are live streaming. The original has 15 buttons. They released the Mini, which has 6 programmable buttons. So if you do streaming and you travel a lot, or if you have a very cluttered and small desk space and you don't have room for that, the Stream Deck Mini came out. It is $100. The original Stream Deck is $150, I think. So there you go. Elgato is just coming out with a new version of that if you have a very specialized use case or a minimal desk space or traveling a lot. Next is a speculative new product, and it is new Shure Gear. So I was recently watching Chris Curran's live stream on Twitch. If you don't know who Chris Curran is, he is the owner and the host of the Podcast Engineering Show and the Podcast Engineering School. And he was at Podcast Movement 2018, and I saw him sit down across from the Shure booth. And you guys know how much I love my SM7B. So I said, Chris, go ahead and go give the Shure SM7B a hug. But he went over there and he did a close-up of the SM7B. By the way, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. I loved seeing the SM7B out in the wild. But he asked the Shure folks, can we expect any new products? And the guy there said, you know, I can't tell you anything exactly, but I will tell you, go ahead and come back and see us at CES 2019. So, from that interaction, I'm going to go ahead and speculate that in 2019 at CES, we will have new microphones from Shure. And I cannot wait for that because you guys know how much I love Shure. I've only been unhappy or not fully on board with a couple of their products. The majority of their stuff is absolutely killer. So, Chris, thank you for going and chatting with them, and I appreciate you asking those good questions. Now we're going to jump to TV and movies of the week. So over the last couple of months, I've been going on this huge horror kick recently, and I've been talking a lot about these films in the movie portion of my Discord server. And then Mr. Newsreel, who is a member of the Discord server, mentioned that I have not been addressing these films in the what I've been watching or the TV and movie segment of this podcast. So I'm going to be bringing this segment back and maybe mentioning my favorite horror film or film that I've watched over the last week. So first, this week, the movie I'm going to be recommending is called Castle Freak. It came out in 1995 and it was directed by Stuart Gordon. It's based on an H.P. Lovecraft story titled The Outsider, and it's starring Jeffrey Combs, who you will recognize from The Reanimator, which I believe is also based off an H.P. Lovecraft story, not film, H.P. Lovecraft story. So this film goes ahead and follows a family who inherits a castle from a long-lost relative, which seems like a pretty typical horror trope, and they go and attend to this property and bad things start to happen. Surprise, surprise. The previous owner had locked someone in the dungeon of this castle and tortured them for years and years, and when this family shows up, the castle freak, this guy who's been tortured for decades, gets out. And then the bad stuff starts to happen. So do not watch this movie if you do not like gore and you do not like violence. And I'm going to give you a little bit of warning. Go ahead and skip forward 30 seconds or a minute in this podcast if you don't want to hear me describe a disgusting scene. So at one point in this movie, the castle freak is attacking a prostitute, and the prostitute goes to grab his, and the camera goes ahead and pans down and shows his, and you see that his thingy had been chopped off. Yeah. There you have it. There's even more disgusting things that happen in that scene and in this movie, but I don't want to give them away because if you are into this kind of campy horror with really good prosthetics, I think it's a fun watch, and I think you'll get some good laughs in here. And I want to point out, this is not one of those films that's so bad that it's good, because I don't understand the appeal of those. This was just ultimately a low-budget horror film that I thought was fun to watch, if not a bit over the top with the gore, but it was still a lot of fun. And if you are into that type of film, I would highly recommend it. And I'm sure if you aren't into that type of film, you will never look at me the same way knowing that I enjoyed that. So there you have it. That was the first week back on the TV and movies of the week. Now let's jump to what I've been testing. First up, right now I am using the OC White Boom Arm. I don't know what model it is because I bought it a long time. So I was putting away some microphones and then I realized, oh, I still have this box of this boom arm that I bought for way too much money. Like 6 months ago. I think this thing cost $300. It's way too expensive for a boom arm. It makes no sense. But I realized, oh, let's go ahead and try pulling this out and setting it up on this desk, because on my last desk, it wasn't big enough and it wasn't sturdy enough to handle this. My current desk does seem to be able to handle this. So I'll give you my overall thoughts on this thing. First off, it works really well as a boom arm, as well as it should, because it's $300. It's got built-in cable management, which I do really like. What else? It's built like a tank. It is an all-metal construction with a little bit of plastic for the cable management rails and racks and all of that. And it is incredibly low profile. It is right down on the desk. You can get this completely out of the way, which is ideal if you do video work and you can't have the boom arm blocking the talent's face, the moneymaker. But there is some bad stuff about this, and the thing is, the arm doesn't fit snugly in the desk mount, the side desk mount, and for $300, I would imagine everything fits together perfectly, but in this case, it doesn't, and that's kind of a letdown. And other than that, I guess it's a great boom arm. It does its job well. It doesn't have a really long reach. I think you could get a longer one, but then you're up to $350. Then you got to buy the side desk mount for more, which I think was $30. Just a lot of money to spend on this thing, and I bought it because I was going to do a what kind of gear is H3 podcast using, which I may still do in the future, but that's why I picked it up and finally pulled it out, and I kind of like it. I think it's a nice boom arm, and that's it there. I'm using the Rode Broadcaster as well. So this is a new microphone. It's the first condenser mic I've used on the podcast in probably months, and I'm not hating it, but it's specifically designed to compete with broadcast dynamics like the SM7B, like the RE20, which is why it's called the Broadcaster. And it's definitely nice sounding out of the box. It does have a little bit of grit in the higher frequencies unless you throw on some compression to kind of bring up and beef up the lower end. But I think it's a nice sounding mic. It is condenser, picks up quite a bit of room noise. When I was using it in my living room the other day for a voice chat, you could hear all the reverb, all the room noise. The air conditioning was significantly louder, and yeah, I'll do a full review of it like I always do, but nice little change of pace there. Now let's jump to what she had to say. First up, I will point out that there were some really great comments regarding the open source discussion with the Google Find last week, and they go really in depth, so in depth that I feel like it would be a bit boring to go ahead and read them back to you. So if you are interested in learning more about that or hearing people's opinions, I'm going to recommend going and checking the comments of last week's episode, BSP-128 on YouTube. Really good information there. So the first comment we're responding to today comes from Noah Ackerman. He says, hey, just found your channel and I absolutely love it. But on to the Apple case. Obviously, coming out and telling everyone that they knew the keyboard was faulty would guarantee a significant loss of money. However, given the recent court case regarding the iPhone 6, the fact that Apple was charging people $400 to fix their ultimate premium machines that broke for no good reason, and their attacks on right to repair, a little honesty might be worth more than money. After all, consumers' trust in Apple has been going downhill recently, and that's serious for a company that relies on the absolute trust of its consumers. So Noah, I'll go ahead and agree with you 90% of the way. I do agree that trust in Apple has been decreasing over the last couple of years, but only in people who are actively following the tech news or people who have had those faulty devices. So I think it was John Prosser from Front Page Tech that mentioned this, but I could be quoting the completely wrong person. And their thoughts are that the average consumer doesn't follow the tech news cycle. So if they buy a phone or computer and it works well, they're gonna like it. However, if they are one of the unlucky people whose phone bends, graphics card fails, or computer overheats, they're not going to trust Apple at all. Now, I don't think that just an average consumer would say, oh, I think my MacBook Pro i9 is throttling. I think my iPhone 10 is a little bit jittery. I don't think anybody's really going to notice that unless you follow the news cycle and you're really tuned in to what's going on there. So I do agree with you mostly. For the people who follow the tech news, they see the missteps that Apple has been making, but the average person who doesn't follow the news, I think a lot of them are just blissfully unaware of all of these issues. But we have seen Apple at least acknowledging and fixing some of these issues that are arising, and a lot more quickly than they have in the past. So I think that Apple is learning and they are improving, even if the motivation behind improving is only to avoid lawsuits. I don't care what the motivation is, as long as they are getting better at addressing these issues quickly and properly. So Noah, thank you very much for that feedback. The next comment comes from Tim Hartman. Tim says, agreed on the retakes. YouTube is awash with so much content that I will just move on to the next video if the content is poorly produced. That's why it takes me so long to drop new videos on my main channel, Proclaim AV. However, I will not push out crummy content just to fill up my vids list. So Tim, thank you very much for that comment. I agree with you 100%, which I guess you would expect because you were applying to my statement about this exact same thing. But I'm sharing it because this is just another excuse for me to remind people that producing your content to the highest quality possible is important because you're competing with probably hundreds of other people making videos and making podcasts about the same topic. So you can't just rest on your laurels thinking, hey, you know what? I had an off day. It's okay. Oh, my video's good, but it's not great. If you have the ability to improve the quality of your content, you probably should. If you are serious and you are creating that content to try to succeed and grow and become popular on that platform. So Tim, thank you. And the last comment comes from Roberto Orozco. Hey bro, how do you record what is on your screen, such as videos and sound effects while recording? I am doing a podcast from my computer, but I am still figuring it all out. So Roberto, thank you very much for the question, and I'm going to give you two answers. One you may like or hate, depending on what operating system you use. Second one, you may just hate because it's not thorough at all. So for everything that I do, I use Mac for podcast, video processing, everything. I will occasionally use my Windows for streaming or for testing, but my main thing is Mac. So that's where I'm mainly going to focus here. So in order to record my screen, I use QuickTime, which has a built-in screen capture function. Then to record the sound effects and microphone and everything else to Logic Pro X, I use Rogue Amoeba's Loopback Audio, which allows you to have multiple inputs or system-level audio or program-level audio, and it routes all of that to a single input. So I can have Firefox or Chrome audio output, I can have my microphone input, I could have my soundboards input, all going to a single aggregate device. It's a digital device. So I run all of that into Logic Pro and I route all of those different inputs to separate tracks so they're all separately recorded, and I can adjust the levels in post. So that is how I do it in on Mac. I don't know much about Windows. If anybody does have digital audio routing software suggestions for Windows, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And Roberto, go ahead and check in the comments on YouTube if you to see if anybody replied. But I think recently somebody did suggest VB Audio's virtual audio cable for Windows, and maybe that will do what you need. I don't know what screen capture software there is, but hopefully somebody will give you some information in the comments down below. Now let's get to my favorite part of the podcast, the Ask Bandrew segment. Okay guys, we're running out of questions, so reminder, if you have any questions that you want answered, send them to askbandrew@gmail.com. I will answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. Today, we are only looking at one email, and it comes from Heather, the host of Sunshine and Power Cut. She says, "Hey Bandrew, how are you?" "I'm doing well, Heather. Thank you for always asking. Very kind of you." She says, "I think you've mentioned before about attention spans being pretty short when it comes to things like the consumption of digital media, like YouTube, for example. Watch time is relatively short per video because it's easy to click away, and there's so much content to choose from, and people consume so much of it. So, have you found your attention has changed at all? And if so, to what degree? Has it been a slow process over the past few years, or is it more recent or rapidly changing, for better or worse? Do you consume more content now than before? Do you think that this short attention span for all digital media affects people's attention span for other things in life, being less patient, more demanding, less likely to see a project through to fruition because of time and effort involved? And is it harder for people to get real or lasting enjoyment from stuff that's not digital because it's not as instantly gratifying as having everything at the click of your mouse? Or are they forever looking for the next thing to entertain themselves? Looking forward to your thoughts, and thank you." Heather. Why did I say it like that? Heather, not Heather. My God, words are hard today. Thank you very much for the question. That is a good one. And just a reminder for everybody watching or listening, I'll be helping Heather close out the Sunshine Summit 2018 on Friday 17th of August, 9 p.m. EDT. Want more information? sunshineandpowercuts.com. Check that out. Woo! Great questions, Heather. Appreciate you. So, Has my attention span changed? If so, how much? And how recently or quickly has that occurred? So I think that my attention span has sort of changed, but mainly because I have so little free time. So I no longer say, oh, this podcast doesn't sound good, I'll still listen to it, or I don't care about what this podcast episode is about, I'll listen anyways. Now I'll go ahead and say, oh, this sounds like trash, I'm not going to listen to it, I'm not interested in this topic or this guest, not going to listen to it. Now it has been changing slowly over the last 3 years as I've committed to creating more and more content. And I will admit, I probably do consume a little bit less content now because I only have 3 free night weeks or 3 free nights every single week. But I do try to fill up every other moment in my life with consuming something beneficial or useful or even fun. So I'll listen to audiobooks while driving to work or walking around. I'll listen to podcasts all day while I'm at work if I'm not in calls or if I need to focus really hard. I listen to music while I'm researching my podcast. Today I was listening to Jonathan Colton. In the weekly voice chat, we'll frequently watch YouTube videos together. Before I go to sleep, I'll catch up on a couple of YouTube videos and then just to stay up to date with what's going on. And when I'm actually free, one of those 3 evenings, I'll go ahead and watch some movies. Now, is this for better or for worse? I think that it's for the better. I don't know. I personally think it is. I just think that I waste a lot less time and I consume higher quality content as well. So in that sense, I do suppose that it is better, that I have been more discerning, more critical, or more selective with what I'm consuming and how much of it I'm consuming. So next question, I guess. Does this short attention span online affect attention span for other things in life? So I do think that social media and essentially having an unlimited choice of content online hasn't decreased attention span per se, but it has made people much pickier. And also, it has made people want instant gratification, absolutely. So as far as people getting less patient, I can only speak to myself, but I don't think that I've become less patient. I just prefer to consume content that allows me to multitask. So audiobooks while I'm driving, podcasts while I am at work, music while I'm researching. And I think it's less about patience and more about productivity and optimization of time. At least that's what I tell myself to trick myself into thinking, hey, you're not a bad person. Now, as far as being more demanding, not of other people. Again, this is just for me. I don't think I'm more demanding of other people, but more demanding of content? Absolutely. So when you have a nearly infinite selection of content, why would you be okay watching or listening or experiencing stuff that just isn't good? You could go ahead and find something that's going to add more value to your life and be a better outcome or provide a better experience. I don't understand why people watch bad movies for the sake of watching bad movies. I just don't get it. Now on to the most interesting question for me, and it was being less likely to see a project through due to time and effort. Now, me personally, I do have projects that I want to start, but I don't because of the time and effort they would take. But that's not because I'm not patient enough or because I don't want to put in the time and effort. It's because I'm just too darn busy and I do need to maintain some semblance of sanity. So for instance, I could say, well, I do have 3 free evenings. I could go ahead and start these projects and put all the work for those projects in those 3 nights. But then I have no time for myself to relax and unwind. So that's my personal take on it. I could start other projects because I'm willing to put in the time and effort, but I also understand the benefit of having a sane schedule and allowing time to unwind and enjoy yourself. Now, as far as other people, I do see a lot of people start YouTube channels or podcasts and then quit a couple months in. And that's likely because some of them just didn't understand how much work it actually is, and they weren't willing to take on that commitment. Now, I'm not saying that as a negative thing. It's not negative at all. People need to make decisions based on what will allow them to have the most enjoyable life. And if you take on this project, you realize you don't like it, why would you continue to do it? Don't. If you find out that you hate it, stop doing it. So if you can get more joy, if people get more joy out of playing video games, then awesome. Go play video games. I just personally get joy out of working hard on these projects that I currently am working on, so I'm willing to sacrifice some of my personal time and pretty much all of my weekends. Okay, now, is it harder to get lasting enjoyment from stuff that's not digital because it's not instantly gratifying? So I do think that there's a lost art of sitting and thinking and discussing what you've just consumed, like a book club, for instance, or after you go watch a movie, go out for dinner or go out for coffee and talk about what you just watched. Talk about the themes, talk about the characters, talk about the score, talk about all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's that change and that lost art is necessarily because it's not instantly gratifying. I just think that people want more and more of a distraction nowadays, and those distractions aren't as deep or as layered or as complex. So the content wouldn't really hold up or lend itself to conversational analysis like the older, slower paced stuff that is kind of a slow burn throughout the film or the music or the concert or anything like that. And do they forever look for the next thing to entertain themselves? I do think to some extent people are always looking for the next thing to entertain themselves or distract themselves. I know I constantly am. I like looking for new stuff. It opens my eyes to new experiences. It opens my eyes to new viewpoints. I just think it's healthier to constantly be seeking something new and exciting to keep your mind engaged rather than just say, okay, I'm going to read this one book over and over and over again. So is it a bad thing? I don't think so. I do think that there is a lost art of analyzing the content that you consume, but different strokes for different folks. Heather, thank you very much for that email and that question. That was awesome. That is going to do it for today. Thank everybody. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. I appreciate you. Again, got any questions? AskBandrew@gmail.com. I will see you all next week. Bye. Bye. Yes, bye. See ya.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.